My Country Y107, and good morning. Joined once again by the ladies from SALT Counseling Clinic in Greenbrier. You can always find them online at saltcounselingclinic.com. Kim and Marissa join us here this morning. And, as we continue our discussions with regards to Domestic Violence Awareness Month, one of the things, Kim, is the question about how do we recognize that someone is in a abusive relationship?
Well, it's often a very difficult thing because, like we had previously mentioned, it's not something that we just wake up and go, oh, this person's being abusive. Usually it's a pattern that's developed over long periods of time. But for a person themselves, having a partner who is jealous, because that is something that we mistake it as being for love, but having a partner who is jealous, or maybe they start isolating you away from your friends and your family, or they start controlling your finances, controlling what you wear, controlling how you speak. So all those controlling behaviors can put up a red flag that this isn't healthy, this isn't right.
And of course, that's one of the reasons why we want folks to listen to what we're talking about, to get an idea, because you may be in a situation where you feel like something's not right, but you don't know what that could be, right?
Exactly. That cycle. We talk about the cycle of getting into a relationship, and how it goes is it starts to build over time, little bitty things that put up red flags, like I said, and eventually there's an explosion where you have a big, huge fight, or maybe they put their hands on you. But then after that is the honeymoon stage again, where they make apologies and they try to buy you things. And that's how people get stuck, is they say, well, he's not always like that, or she's not always like that. I know how they can be. So that cycle is vicious, and it just goes over and over and over.
And at some point, you've got to break that cycle in order to get your own peace of mind back.
Exactly.
Now, also, I think it's important, Marissa, for us to be able to see how we can recognize signs in other people's relationship and maybe be able to give them a heads up, a warning, or a voice of concern.
Right. A lot of the times, the people who are in domestic violence situations, they're not the first people to recognize it. We get a lot of referrals because of family members. Hey, I've got this situation. Can you guys help me? I don't know how to address this with them. So some of the warning signs that a friend or family member can recognize is the abuser putting the person down in public. It's kind of a warning that, okay, if they feel comfortable enough to do this in front of us, can you imagine what they're doing behind the scenes?
Right.
Also, if they're constantly worried about making their partner angry, like, oh, well, I can't buy that, or I don't need to wear that because it'll make them angry. Or they make excuses for their partner's behavior, like, well, like Kim was saying, like, well, it doesn't happen all the time. But friends and family members can recognize that. If they're jealous, like Kim said, if you see unexplained marks or injuries, or, oh, the dog did it, or the excuses for these kind of noticeable marks on the body. If they stop spending time with you as a friend or a family member, and that's uncommon, that's a big red flag.
So when we start seeing these things, what is the next step that we, as somebody who sees something like this in a relationship, how do we go about addressing and getting that conversation going?
That's a hard thing to do, because you have to be willing to risk the relationship. If you're a friend or a family member and you see someone who is potentially in an abusive relationship, you first need to make sure that you both are in a safe space, whether that be at your own personal house or out doing something together, and just kind of being empathetic, like, hey, I've noticed these things going on. Are you okay? And developing that safety and that trust with that person.
I think, too, you would want to be able to understand that they may not acknowledge it at first. It may be one of those situations where they come back, last week you asked me if things were okay, and you know what, really they weren't.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be open to that, not getting the immediate feedback.
And whenever you make that conversation known to the person who's being abused, when I say you risk that relationship, they could totally isolate themselves because they're not ready to face it.
Right.
The reality and the risk that's involved for them to leave.
But also know that even just saying, I'm here, I care, can make a difference.
Man,
Maybe not that impact right away, but at some point it can help them.
Absolutely.
All right. Again, ladies, we want to encourage folks to contact you. Also, to contact you via our question opportunity on our website at y107fm.com. Click on the SALT counseling link right there, and you can privately address a question, and we will address those questions here on the radio or individually if you would prefer. But we certainly do want to make that opportunity available. How do we contact SALT Counseling Clinic?
So our phone number is 501-557-6785, or you can go to our website and message us there as well.
That's saltcounselingclinic.com. Kim, Marissa, thanks for joining us again this morning.
Thank you.